everyone. This is Julie Pankey, and I'm coming to you with Betty Loiacono and Nina Balan today. We're excited to bring you this new series about hindsight being 2020. So today is the first webinar in our series. Essentially, what we did was took a consultant's guide to reopening, kind of the checklist, and went down the checklist, everything that we would talk to our clients about as we're doing a grand reopening of our businesses, and we're bringing these applicable, really great business tools and foundations to our spa partners. We are live. I have a 3-year-old coming behind me because apparently Papa lost her. Anyway, so welcome.
And I'll apologize in advance if I have 2 screaming teenagers that happen to come in.
Right, because the beauty of being live, we all love live video, right? Just a reminder, so every Monday at 3 o'clock, we're going to be bringing you these tools. It's for the next 14 weeks. And it's everything that, I have in my toolkit, and I'm bringing you the brightest spa industry minds every single Monday to give you the best tips and tools available. Next Monday is Memorial Day. I can't believe it. So we will be Tuesday at 3 o'clock next week. But otherwise, every Monday at 3 o'clock. And if you're a vendor partner, this Thursday, our coffee chat is going to be dedicated to our vendor partners, and our coffee chats are normally at 10:30, but this Thursday it will be 3 o'clock for vendors and resource partners, and then we'll go back to our regular coffee chat the following Thursday at 10:30, which we can bring our spas and our vendors together, which is going to be super exciting. So, welcome again. I'd like to introduce Betty Loiacono. She's the beauty in red with red glasses, red lipstick, red jewelry. Betty is the spa director at Sano Spa at Saybrook Point Inn. She's a personal friend of mine for way too many years to even mention, and a personal mentor for the past, 20, I don't know, are we going close to 30 years, Betty?
Yes, it's decades now.
Yeah, decades. And so, Betty's been in the industry for a really long time, and she's going to bring you her insights today. And also a great friend. Both of these gals, if you've been to our Spa Hive events, you've met them because they are part of my Spa Hive board. Our Spa Hive volunteer board, I figured today made up, it was something like 400 years of experience. You know how I say 100+ years? But I think that we're definitely like lowballing it here. So Nina Balan is a spa consultant. She's worked for some of the biggest spa consultants in the industry. She helps me as well, and I'm not one of those, but
yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Expert on med spas. She also is an esthetician, a laser practitioner. She's based in Massachusetts, and Betty's based in Connecticut. So welcome, ladies. Is there, and again, she's another, 30-year spa industry veteran. So right here on the screen today, you're looking at 90 years.
That's really old. You're dating us. You're dating us.
But we're all like 32.
You can see how much spa makes us youthful. So there you go.
Right. So welcome, ladies. And today we're going to talk about a really fun topic. We're going to talk about expenses, right? I was doing like a quick, something I do with spas that I work with, and I normally do it for the staff. So I have, $100 here. And when we look at how much it costs to operate our spas, I just jotted it down really quickly, right? How much do we pay on average? Salary, wages, everything that goes into the salary and wages bucket, right? Probably 50%.
40, 50, yeah.
Most people probably are close to 50, right? When we're in that bucket. So here's 50 bucks. So we have 50 bucks left for my business owner. Then we do rent, utilities, marketing, advertising, our complimentary amenities, and then all those miscellaneous expenses. So on average, when we do P&Ls, right, we average them about 5% each. So that's another 20%. So there goes another 20 bucks. So hi, spa owner, here you are, $100 service. You're left with $30. Now, we didn't talk about operating expenses, so how much it costs to do your service. So everything that goes into performing this service. So we average, Nina, right, on our P&Ls, another 10%.
And it can go higher for med spa.
Go higher, right? Here's another 10 bucks. So hi, spa owners. Now we're left on $100 service. And I'm being conservative here, $20. I know your staff thinks that you're rolling in the dough, but we're going to talk to you today on one expense that you can control, and that is your operating supplies. So I've talked enough. Nina and Betty have put together an amazing presentation that we're excited to share with you.
Okay, I'll share my screen. Can you see this, everybody?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, sorry. We have practiced this. I don't know why we have a glitch. So 1 minute. Share screen.
There we go.
There we go. Okay. I'm going to move this over a little bit.
Oh, I meant to say, I know you're all muted. So as we go, we want this to be very interactive. So if anything strikes a chord with you, in the chat box down below, ask your questions. Marianne is going to be monitoring, as will I. I'll be putting myself on mute until I need to jump in. So as we're going along, don't hold it to the end. Go ahead and ask any questions. We're here for you. Sorry, Nina.
It's okay. Thank you, Julie, and welcome everybody to Understanding Controlling Back Bar. Julie has done a great job of introducing us, and some of the names that we'll be seeing, some of them will be familiar to us and some of them are new. So welcome. So Betty, I'll let you take it from here.
Absolutely. Well, hello everybody as well. These combined efforts from Nina and I are not ours alone. They come from sitting around tables with all of you at our Spa Hive events. They come from being in situations where we scratch our head and say, what's going on here? How do I take care of my business? Why is this costing so much? So what we're really trying to bring to the table, and I mean today, because I see this esteemed list of people who have signed up. Many of you are our friends and we've spoken with you before. Others are people that we haven't ever met before necessarily, is what are the trickle-down effects of doing and or not doing what we might make recommendations strongly for you to do to be on top of your menu, your back bar, and your retail, mostly back bar and cost per treatment. How you should take, we recommend how you should take another look at your service menu, and especially now, post-COVID or in the midst of it, your cost per treatment, because trust me, it is not the same as when you closed your door or it was closed for you. What is your practicing, your religious practicing of ordering and taking a look at your inventory? We're suggesting this be a religious practice. And what are the best practices that we recommend?
That's exactly right. So we'll start here with what we call as the trickle-down effect. So If you look to the left, you'll see a diagram. You'll see a service menu, a treatment room, and back bar. And what all of these have in common is that they're essentially codependent upon one another. And the service menu, it also looks like a pyramid. So the service menu sits at the top of the pyramid, hence the trickle-down effect. So our service menu, in essence, dictates the inventory that we hold in our back bar. It also dictates the products and services that we have in our treatment room. So what we do with our service menu really is a catalyst for what happens in these other operational areas of your spa. So in looking at this, we need to say, what do each of these areas do and how do they impact our bottom line? So let's go. So 3 things that you really must know and be aware of at all times is your product usage and your current inventory. Eyeballing your inventory is not enough for management. The second piece will be your product seepage. And I know that word looks really weird, everybody, but we do know it's spelled correctly. So where is your product going? So it can seep away through theft, waste, spoilage, training product. It can disappear before our eyes. And this is an area that we don't always have a very good visual on. And that's something we need to really manage. We also need to control costs as a team. It takes consistency. It takes a team effort for detail and a vested interest for the overall success of your business. The second piece is that your spa needs systems, and we all do have systems. We couldn't operate a spa without systems. However, consistency in your operational strategies is really, really important. And what those do is create guidelines to operate within and create a game plan so your whole team knows what to expect and what to do moving forward step by step. So we need operational strategies to reduce our waste, again, and prevent theft and overuse of product. Again, as part of your systems, your purchasing, receiving are all extremely critical in terms of controlling your inventory. And all these systems should be documented. It's not good enough to just know what's in your software. You really need to have it written down, and it has to be something that's your spa Bible, your standard operating procedures. That's something, it's not a stagnant document, it's a document that's ever evolving, it's moving all the time, and it's your baby, it's the heart of your business. So keeping that up to date and keeping those operational strategies and outlines updated in that system is extremely important. The other piece to this is, you know, your experience as a spa owner. Some are new, have been in this just newly out of the gate, some are seasoned. This will dictate when we go through this. You might say, I already do that, check, check, check. However, the goal is there's always areas for improvement. It's very difficult as a spa owner to control every single aspect all the time, hence burnout. So we need to delegate things to our team leads, to our managers, in terms of what we want to focus on and where we want to move. So your experience really dictate in terms of what action steps you're going to take, your affirmation, your confirmation, what you're going to establish as your guidelines, and what is going to really motivate you to make those changes. And lastly, your training. You know, bottom line is staff doesn't know what they don't know. And in absence of any rules or guidelines, it's all up for interpretation. So we need to really buckle down on training. And I'm not necessarily talking about front of the house training, but we're talking about specifically in terms of right now service training and our back bar and our products and how we use them and when we use them. So a question to take off of this screen is essentially, does your spa have systems in place already to manage costs? And if so, what do they look like? And when is the last time you evaluated them? So that's a food for thought question for you moving forward, because all of these pieces affect your bottom line. And so we'll move on from there.
I think another good question to ask that, you know, you can ask yourself is, do you have an SOP manual, right? Like what you call, your spa Bible up at the front desk, also, within your treatment rooms. The outlines, really all of your operating procedures. We'd love to hear from you in the chat, of course, if you have any questions about that, or how you've been successful, creating your own, processes.
And I would to that point, Julie, just on the SOP, it's great to have a master SOP, but it has to be accessible. It can't be a document that sits on your shelf. So breaking your SOP into compartments, you have an inventory SOP, you have a service SOP, you have a front of the house, you break it into pieces so it's accessible to your whole team.
And lastly, accessibility does not necessarily guarantee their understanding of these documents or training. If you are not committed to onboarding each of your team members in like-mindedness and in the consequences of malpractice of these SOPs, you really are going to slip and slide down a slope that is going to erode your bottom line, create a tremendous amount of frustration. Now, I'm not saying, and Nina's not saying, nor is Julie, that this is 100% militaristic, but you really need to sort of take that rigid view. You really have to let your team know that this has got to be a win-win situation. It's not their shopping cart, it's your bottom line. If they agree to be an employee of yours, they must literally buy into and agree with and help support the consequences of mismanaged inventory and product, cross-contamination, wastefulness. So in your training, if it's not coming from your mission, vision, and values, that this is an important piece, you're failed and doomed. I don't care what or how great your book is, but you've got to look into the eye of your provider. And if they're not doing this within 90 days, and also not passing on as mentors to the new employees, you have failed.
That's a great point, Betty. It doesn't matter how great your systems are if you don't hold people accountable and, train them, let them know. Everyone knows, everyone, knows the expectations. And then, we have teams that hold them accountable to the expectations. That's awesome.
Which is why, as we continue, we'll show other ways that you can do this. You can use the sword and the shield very effectively, and you also have to give the got a girl, got a guy pat on the back for really following through. It's really instrumental that you use both of these approaches, because your ownership, if you're not the owner, is going to use the sword and the shield. And if it's you, if it's your property and your stuff, you will be less perplexed at the reason why your margins are so slim if they're there and you're not bringing things to the bottom line.
All right. Great, Betty. I'm going to move to the next slide here for everyone. So now we talk about our service menu and our cost per treatment. We start getting a little more nitty gritty. So Betty.
Yes.
Service menu. I'll let you go.
In the days when Julie and I were putting together menus 100 years ago, it was so super to have this accordion folded 50, 60, 70 treatment option. It was just the thing you did. You made yourselves try to stand up against the competition. And literally, we were the first spa next to Noel DiCaprio's spa in Connecticut to do it. And literally, some of that same spa menu still exists today. That's good, bad, or indifferent. But what we're asking you to do right now is to take a look at your menus and make them more niche, make them more boutique, make them more streamlined, because at the end of the day, you need to bring your brands and align them to your vision. And that's a streamlining strategic tactic, so that you're not carrying a lot on your shelving, but that you're consuming everything that you need in the time that you project you need it. And you will really be able to evaluate then what your client base is asking for. You can use an increased menu or an elasticized menu for specials or seasonal promos, or even to take the back bar off your shelf as needed or as a promo. And we're going to get to that. But I believe personally, professionally, I think Nina and very much Julie and many of us, the days of the ridiculous diner menu strategy, the to please all version is gone. Right now, you've got to almost lead the horse. We've all been told by the volume of what people buy and the if you're looking at your reports, which I know Nina's going to get into later, what the most popular things are. So serve the most popular, serve the most proactively profit deliverable treatments to your bottom line. So that requires the menu minimization and decreasing of costs. That's very simply stated. It's going to be heart-wrenching to do for those of you that have a lot of offerings, but your therapists and your service providers there can also tell you, but if you're not reading your reports and you're seeing that you've got a lot of inventory for a little back pay, then you've got to start cutting things out. Evaluate the resource partners and if you're carrying too many. So you will see also as you streamline, and this is not meant in any way for the chop their heads off for resource partners. Our resource partners, I believe, my resource partners and I are in a complete partnership to my success. I'm their client. They want to make sure I win. They are presented in their brands with so many products, but in the size of your rooms and in the scope of your practice, what is your best items for back bar and for your clients? And diversity is important. I won't say that it's not, but you need to shop resource partners when you need to control costs, whether it's for a Q-tip or your wipes or your gloves. But the thing you need to be most loyal to is your bottom line. And if that's not your driving mantra, then something's askew. And I think that you really have to examine your conscience to this particular goal.
And Betty, can I add to the piece as you and I discussed with your service menu? I think that spas sometimes can, they lose sight of their own vision and mission for what their brand is.
Yes.
And when you're looking at your service menu, it's very easy. Your vendor can carry, or resource partner, will use that interchangeably, may offer some fabulous treatments. However, it may not align specifically to what your vision and what you're looking to do with your service menu. So I love our vendors and I love our resource partners. However, you need to stay strong and not veer and add more than your spa can handle, your staff can handle, your budget can handle, because more isn't always better. And I think we've all learned that clients in general, they ask us what services is best for them. So we have complete control over what we offer, and people get confused by too many choices. So in this situation, less really is more on so many levels for your client and for your bottom line.
Absolutely.
Okay, so an exercise we had for you regarding your service menu, it is something you should monitor every year and run your reports. You don't need to do this blindly, and certainly see what your slow services are and replace them with more effective treatments. Keep your clients top of mind. And as Betty has mentioned, be aware of trends. You don't want to be the trendy place. It's always good to be in front of the curve. However, know your market, I think, is really what it comes down to. You need to know your client and you need to know your market.
And each of us too, Nina, have, looking over the participants, a day spa, a med spa, my resort spa, may all be different in what the guest, if they have the ability to walk in the door and ask for a treatment and what they have. So for me, can I see a menu? Sure, here's the menu. And then literally they're flipping through my menu and go, what do you have available today for massage? And
they'll go by time. They'll book by what time's available.
The time that they have. You're going to sell or use your menu to persuade people to buy a gift card of some dollar value. Make that reasonable because, or your packages, make them reasonable. Make it cost effective for you as you start discounting into your bundles of things. So I know that Nina's going to go through the cost per treatment piece, but for me, The menu has become such a new evolution in thinking, to be honest with you, that if I have to spend too much time trying to decipher the menu, I'm out of there. And I may just go on somewhere else. So try to keep it simple.
Okay. Okay, so let's move on to our cost per treatment. So this is an exercise that either some of us have done, or we've basically taken our cost per treatment as information that's provided to us from our resource partners. So knowing your cost per treatment is your bottom line. This is a critical exercise for your business in knowing how much each of the services that you offer on your service menu cost you. You need to know your budget. You can't plan your budget without knowing what your cost per treatment is, and it really doesn't need to be a guessing game or it's about $10 a service. You really need to drill down a little deeper and find out what that looks like. So as part of your cost per treatment, your vendor might say, oh, to do this service, it costs $8. Oh, great, it only costs $8. Well, what you're not factoring in is all the other consumables, and now especially PPE in our COVID world. This is, and we've discussed this in coffee talks before, about what is this really going to cost our businesses and how we're going to adjust for that. Are we going to increase our our service cost to the client? How are we going to adjust for these additional costs and what it really looks like? So don't necessarily assume, oh, my gloves are this and my masks are that. It's a real number, and you need to account for that number in each of your services. So that could be anywhere now, especially $3, $4 additional per treatment, based on if you're using shields or disposable sheets, multiple gloves more than before. We've all used sanitation processes in our business, but now it's times 10. So monitoring your cost per treatment, at least this is ongoing. I say twice a year, but you really need to know your margins with your cost per treatments relative to what you're charging for your service. So what I have on the next page is a spreadsheet.
Can I just say something too, Nina?
Yep.
This is something that I know it's in the forefront of our mind, and it should be in the back of our minds too. Our volume is going to be decreased virtually by the way we take people in. So again, sometimes volume can take care of some costs. For instance, a massage with an ounce of shea butter cream might help pay for that facial, for the death-defying brightening treatment, right? So in the scope of things. But if you're not doing 30, 40 massages on a weekend anymore, resort spa type, if you're not able to bring people in the way we used to bring them in, if they're basically passing in the night, there's no community in your spa, that's going to have a very telling effect on your cost per treatment. Because
Absolutely.
Overall, as you look at it going to the bottom line, it is going to literally change the dynamic of how you purchase, how you utilize, how you consume, and how you have retail help sell. So that's just something else to think about.
And I
And this
think,
definitely,
just to ask again, would you say you guys, would recommend doing a menu audit annually?
absolutely.
I mean,
Without a
of course, right now we all have the opportunity to do a menu audit, and that's why we're giving you these tools so that you can build your foundation really stable, starting from brick one. But absolutely, you both, I mean, and Betty, I'm pretty sure you do a menu audit annually at least, right?
Yes.
I do it at least
I would just
twice a
say
year.
this is a great time to do it. If you're sitting at home right now and you can go through your reports and you can begin to do what I'm going to do, a reentry menu, because clearly you should have a reentry menu, and just begin, because you have to do a reentry menu, and offer only specific things depending on your state or your location that can be offered. Your timing for cleanup's going to change. Your changing of your linen's going to change. So that's a great exercise to get you started.
And also to this point, Betty and I keep going through rabbit holes as we dig deeper. The other piece here is that, if you do a menu audit, and this goes back to doing inventory, and we'll talk about that, is what are you sitting on? And this is a question, what are you sitting on for inventory? How can we unload that? Professional inventory, back bar, and or retail, and that's a discussion on another slide, but we need to be pairing possibly, service retail packages. So we're moving our inventory along with our services. So, and Betty, as you mentioned, our re-entry menu, you can move products with that, purchase this and get that, move that inventory out of your business because it's been sitting there now for going on 3 months.
And Lindsay had a question. She wondered if there was a, sorry, I got out of it, a template that she could
cost per treatment
for cost per service.
Yeah. Okay, so on to our next screen. It's basic. So here's a basic cost per treatment kind of guideline. So I look at it as this, is that you need to write it down and you need to break it down. That's pretty as simple as you get. You can take your service menu and take each and every one of your services and do this exercise. So you know what you are, what it's costing you. So, and these expenses are in your control. So, when you look at your services and when you determine what your cost per treatment is, if you're looking at it and say, holy smokes, this is really, way beyond what I even thought the cost of this service was, you can find ways to tweak your services. You can remove products if you need to. You can replace your services, replace some components of your services with things that don't cost a lot of money or are free. So you can give a lot of value in your services without being product heavy. So you can make these columns on a piece of paper. It's very simple. You don't need to be an Excel wizard to do that. However, you can put it into Excel and the formulas are very easy. So basically, you're going to take your services, you're going to write down what you know from your vendors, and some vendors can provide this for you. How many ounces are in the product, what your product cost is. You calculate, how much it is per ounce, so you really understand the value of that. And the number of treatments per bottle. This is where your resource partner should be able to give you that information, their general guidelines of how many treatments you can get out of your cleanser or out of your masking product. And so essentially you are just basically dividing your number of treatments per bottle into your product cost to get your cost, and getting your cost of treatment down the bottom. We're actually dividing the amount, the $8.40 by the $100, which is our facial cost, and that's giving us our percentage cost. So it's a very easy thing to do. And this is where you take a look at it and say, if this facial came in at, it was $100 facial and the percent cost of treatment was 30% or 20%, that's extraordinarily high. If you were to take a look at what Julie's example was in the beginning with the $100 and the money, you'd be giving away $30 off the top. So, keeping those margins under control, and again, it depends on if you're a day spa, if you're a med spa, those costs are going to fluctuate. But, a good rule of thumb is that, I always say definitely under 18% for sure. On those costs. I mean, there are products that are very expensive. However, you need to make sure what you're charging makes sense with that. So you either need to, raise the cost of the treatment itself, or you need to streamline the service itself. But the staff should really understand how much of the product they're using. So this exercise is phase one. The second piece is training your staff, saying, hey, this is what if we were to pre-dose this facial, this is what it looks like. this is how many pumps of cleanser. This is how much mask is actually needed. There's an awful lot of overuse. So when you know that, according to your resource partner, you should be getting, 64 treatments out of your green tea cleanser, and you see when you're doing inventory that you're running through an awful lot of cleanser and ordering a lot of cleanser, well, we have a problem. It's either being overused or misused in some way. So again, make it really simple for yourself, write it down, break it down, and get these numbers in your hand and edit these twice a year or more frequently, depending if you get a notice from your vendor that prices have increased. So prices are increased and you kind of say, oh, everything's gone up by $1. Well, it's affecting your cost per treatment. So you need to adjust for that and just not take it as, oh, okay, their prices have gone up. This really affects your back bar costs.
And what's your stance on, inventorying your back bar and, putting it in if you're using a spa software?
We do talk about that in the next slide, I think, but yes.
So I shouldn't jump ahead.
No, that's okay. The whole thing here is off with your heads if you're not doing inventory. Seriously. That's the thing. But I do want to say one more thing about this back bar cost. And again, it's another rabbit hole that Nina and we made this a simplistic slide. Mm-hmm. Literally, if I'm doing a cost per treatment, I'm taking how much is it costing me in minimum wage for my hour and a half, 80 minutes, which is really like a 2-hour treatment, for my therapist to be in the room. So for me, I pay a minimum wage plus I pay a tier or a commission above it, which is not necessarily based on a percentage currently. So to get a therapist in the room to do this treatment costs you money. Mm-hmm. Right. Do you pay for your own linen to go out and you pay a service per sheet or pillow or anything? For the guest to be on your table, what does it take to drape your table? Right? And for me, I'm in a resort, so I don't have a chargeback literally until they figure out that they don't do that, charge me back for my linen. But you all have a cost associated with sanitizing your sheets and your linen and your blankets. Right. So there's so much more of this that you can add for a realistic view. I highly recommend at least the average payroll be put in this for you, because you can't do the treatment without the therapist. That's a cost. You've turned on your lights. Maybe you go as far as saying, okay, here's the electric bill for 30 days. If I break it down by hours per treatment, then I've paid $7.60 per room per month to turn on the lights. You can get that crazy, but it's really eye-opening for you to do so. These are great.
I did put a service consumables line in here. I just wrote gloves, sponges, mask. These are arbitrary numbers that are in here, but once you put your actuals in, it really is an eye-opener.
And you may have a therapist named Jane that uses 30 cosmetic rounds in her treatment. And 40, truly you wonder where they're going. So when you're putting your back bar costs for treatment for training, set the alarms off for your team that this is not, this is how they should be actually getting their treatment done. And when you check the garbage pails, I get that crazy sometimes.
I do check garbage too, Betty.
I check the garbage to see what the hell's going on here, right? Is somebody doing their own makeup or is this from a treatment?
Right. So Regina had a question. She said, payroll, water, washing, cleaning, taxes, booking time. What do you calculate at income out of $100 facial with products cost of $8.40? Well, Regina, maybe you weren't on when I first said, This is what you end up getting.
You get a bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken if you're not careful.
Right, because we all know that spa is has an expensive overhead. So, we definitely need to have a handle on these expenses. And I think Regina's point is she's thinking $8.40 is too high for the cost per service for $100 facial.
Yes.
And we probably will all agree with you because, we consult with many spas. But the real numbers that Nina put in here for cost per services. So I was preparing this morning, next Monday, I have days confused. Next Monday, we're going to have a compensation conversation. And I was talking to one of our panelists this morning, and she said, you know what? I made the decision to use very expensive lines. And I know my cost of service is, some of her services are $35 a service, but she's charging $250 for that service.
So it's relative. So this is what
all relative, right?
So this is why you really need to know your market. It's very important. So this is why this exercise, and we say, sure, some services might seem like they're very product heavy, and maybe they are. So this is where you need to work also with your vendors and say, hey, listen, I did this facial. You said it, was coming in at this. I did it and added these additional costs, and it's really costing me this. So
right.
you need to be the master of your domain when it comes to your costs and how you allocate those costs. So it is an exercise. It does take some time, but once you get your master document done, it's something that you will be changing all the time and editing and monitoring, just like you will with your SOPs.
And I think too,
and the expert that we talked to today, that you guys will all see next Monday on our compensation conversation, she said, you know what? Her service to retail percentage is 60%. So her revenue for her spa, she's selling 60% retail to service. That's where she's making her money. And
we haven't even, that's a whole other area.
That, right.
You can't even go there. So,
I definitely want them to plant that in their head, though.
Yes, right. That's important.
There are other things you have to know. Back bar cost per treatment, but you've got to know at the end your bottom line. Retail's a huge piece, and how your therapists, service providers understand sales to service ratio and your front desk is key to your bottom line, because there are no benefits or payroll associated with stocking your retail.
So before we go down the rabbit hole, because I know we can do that.
This gets us so excited.
I know Arena had a question about how do you recommend monitoring product usage by each employee because they have back bar products in their treatment rooms.
We'll get to that.
Let's
All right, so we'll move to the next.
Let's keep moving. Arena, you're going to get that answer.
All right, Betty.
So how to order supplies, it's like this circuitous route, okay? Ordering, please listen to this, it really should be not impulsive, okay? Impulsive ordering is detrimental to your business. It should be based on your budget, and it should be based on the need that is now linked to your streamlined menu. You have to know your slow movers, those things that are languishing in your back bar. Retail's another subject. And you need to know what you're having in terms of high turnover, like, oh my God, where did that cleanser go? Nina, where's the cleanser? Because we only did 14 of those treatments in the course of our inventory month, and yet we consumed enough of this cleanser to have done 120 treatments. So you really need to start having the discerning eye, the Sherlock Holmes eye. And you need to understand your reports. Huh?
I said Inspector Gadget.
You got it. There should be and has to be. I don't even want to use the should be because it's like shoulda, woulda, coulda. There must be a system for ordering done on a weekly or bi-weekly schedule. Now, that's arbitrary, because sometimes it is good to take a look at your stuff promo-wise, trend-wise, seasonally-wise. But absolutely, after inventory gives you a moment of pause or 10 moments of pause as you say, what? How did I consume that? Where are they? I'm missing, 75 ounces of something, and that doesn't make any sense to me. So Inspector Gadget would say, you can't just take your inventory, submit an inventory without having the inquisition that follows and goes with it. You must It's the backbone. So ordering and inventory are synergistic. You have your vertebrae and you've got your spinal column. They're not going to work if one piece of them are injured. And you're not going to walk away from it unscathed if you don't figure out literally what's wrong with this picture. So to answer that last question, you need to check treatment rooms constantly. There should always be that aura, that sense that you are controlling the scenario. Your therapists, service providers need to see you opening their closets, the drawers, checking the garbage. I'm so glad I'm not the only one that does that. You need to see how many Q-tips and stuff are being taken out of either your prep room or your storage, and how many vials of this or that or the other thing. Because cocktailing suddenly also, though it may be literally okay, you find that you're ordering stuff not in line with what the SOPs are for treatments. And you may say that's okay, but you really have to know why you're defending it. So you have to make sure that those service providers, estheticians, are not hoarding in any way, shape, or form product, especially once it's opened in the treatment room. It contributes to waste, and it's a lack of control, and it's definitely out of the order of business. Rely on your computer software.
I want to interrupt you 1 second, Betty. And if you're the owner, I mean, we have all owners and managers on this call, I think, and some resource partners. But don't practice impulsive ordering.
Oh, God.
You guys are in control here.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think we said buy 9, get 1 free, Nina. I'm not sure that this is the place to put that. Special offers can literally love you. But impulsive ordering is impulsive ordering, no matter how you look at it. If it's not going right back to your menu, be very, very careful.
Exactly. And again, you have to take into consideration with ordering, where you're located. We're in post-COVID or still in the middle of COVID. Some locations are open and might be getting more volume, hence, increasing their cash flow and having the ability to order. But I think everyone is going to be relatively cautious. So for now, as you're kind of rebuilding your business, be mindful of that cash flow and of your budget, and order what you need. It's just like, it may be a great special, but if you don't have $1,200 right now, and you don't see on your books for the next 30 to 60 days that you have the service that, pairs with that particular item that you're ordering, just don't do it.
Right. That 1,200 is buying your plexiglass shields, right?
Exactly.
Or your equipment. So just going through me, because inventory is the other piece I use, and ever since Julie and I were employed together, we did inventory together. So I make sure my management team is on site doing it with a team member. And I'll tell you who works great doing this. Your front desk team is great at this. They know where everything is. But boy, when you share with them, especially on the retail side, and even in the professional side, because sometimes they're an intermediary for you and you might have given them or permission to give out product. I don't know if you would or not. It's your everybody's family at the spa is different. They become accountable for selling the right thing or scanning the right product or going, oh my God, look at the theft level here. It puts everybody right in the forefront of accountability, and accountability for ordering and inventory is key. And then adjust your ordering systems for seasonality is huge. And then have a very strong system, which we'll go into in a page or so. Again, have a system for ordering and receiving products. Worst thing in the world is putting out products you haven't received back into your inventory. Oh my gosh, everybody's made the mistake. You've assigned somebody, you didn't have the time to receive the PO and actually put it in. So ordering and inventory, like you have to clear a space to do it so you're not interrupted.
Absolutely. So, as Betty mentioned, ordering and inventory are a hand-in-hand process. They're synergistic to each other. They each need each other here. So when you're managing and monitoring your inventory, if you don't have a software system that can manage it, you can do it manually, and you should do it manually. And a lot of vendors have inventory sheets with all their products on it, and you can use that as your tool. So you can do it manually, you can do a combination of both, but whatever you do, don't do it just with your eyes. That's not good enough. So again, when you're using your software for inventory controls, it really is only as good as the data that you put in there. So if you are not using your system to its full capability because you're scared, or it seems overwhelming, or it's just too much detail, now's the time to do it. Get the training you need on your software to understand the inventory program that they have within it, and get to know it, because it will be your best friend. So in terms of doing and conducting inventory, it is absolutely a two-person job, but also train your team. Make sure everyone understands as part of their onboarding, inventory is a job and everyone's expected to do it. Again, best practice is to do your inventory the first day of each month in the morning, hopefully, or the end of the business day, once you've closed out all your tickets and everything has been done before the spot opens. So it's not a disruption to your regular business day. Now, perform a blind count. Betty, I don't know if you've ever done that. However, to kind of test things, because usually when you do inventory from a software, it prints out and it gives you what your on hand is supposed to be, and you have the numbers right there, and you write down, what it is on the side. Well, it's a very interesting exercise to actually do a blind count.
And it's death-defying, and it's terrifying. But actually, we are often, not often, I would say maybe it's going to be once a year, we're owned by a parent company, even though it's a family company, and the big financial guns say they're coming in to do it with us.
Yes.
And it's a blind count. And that can happen to anyone, and that's part of your audit. So,
but that's a self-audit. Yeah. So, systems can be tweaked,
Lindsay,
inventory systems can be tweaked, but a blind count can't be. So again, make that part of your auditing system, at least maybe do one or two a year. That's a great thing to do. The monitor your service sales to product usage, again, kind of ties into inventory, but we talked about it before with your menu. When you're looking at your inventory and you're seeing that you're going through a lot of whatever it may be, and you're saying, this is really interesting. You know what services that this particular product is aligned to, especially in your back bar. Run your service sales report. See how many of those you've sold in the past 30, 60 days, and see if that really makes sense. Because if you're missing product, it means it's either being misused, it's going missing. So that can also, products being misused really comes down to a staff training problem, an operating problem. And that's what we really want to be focused on and zoning in on that aspect with your inventory. Mm-hmm. So another piece here, and this focuses a little more on retail, but it can go on the back bar, but we put it in here anyway, because retail inventory is another. These all kind of one and the same, but this leans itself a little more to retail. But your goal is to increase your inventory turnover. The more you turn over your inventory, you're moving your inventory. So that's just a number you want to be aware of. Your software system, might provide that for you. But it's essentially your cost of goods sold and then the average inventory for a period. So, in a calendar year, if you sold 100,000 in inventory and your average monthly inventory is 20,000, that means you've got a turnover of 5. So, we want to be mindful. If it's very slow, it means we're just not selling inventory and we're not turning it over. So that's also a symptom of, again, staff. We don't have the right products for our market. There's a lot of reasons for that, but I just wanted to put that in there to be mindful. But again, with your inventory, the other piece right now with the COVID is our expired products that could potentially be sitting in our back bar. We had talked about this earlier, expired products possibly on our shelves. This is where you need to talk to your resource partners about what they can do for you or what they're willing or what's in their capability to do for you. Otherwise, you're going to have to get those numbers and, save it, and it goes on as a loss for your accounting for the following year.
So we have 4 minutes left, and I think our last best
practice. We're going to go through it really fast.
Yeah, so we can dive into this. I really wanted to get questions. I'm hoping people can stay on longer. Julie, I don't know if we have that permission.
Yes, I mean, if anyone wants to stay on longer and have questions answered, let's have Betty and Nina go over their best practices, and know that you're going to receive this PowerPoint presentation as well as the recording, so that you can listen to this again. And Betty and Nina's information, contact information, if you wanted to reach out to them.
So we're going to take an every other bullet approach to this. What do you think, Nina?
Sure. I mean, a lot of this we've already discussed, but there's some things in here that are just ideas and things.
Recap, really.
Yeah.
So you'll operate blindly if you don't set an inventory budget for retail and back bar. So set your inventory. Many times you're working for a corporation or another owner or someone who has great influence over this. So make sure that you're paying attention to what your inventory budget is.
Okay. And don't underestimate your expenses. This is a big one. Don't guess. Find out what those numbers are, do the work, and put it to paper. Streamlining your menu for efficiency. We did talk about that. Pairing services and products together. Understanding and writing your SOP process, extremely important. Managing your PAR levels for optimal inventory within your system. Let's see, cost per treatment, we have discussed that. And moving down the bottom, I think, Betty, I'm going to let you talk about the Sharpie Principle because I really love it.
Okay.
And I think if not everyone's doing it, they should be.
So I'm going to just go up about dispensation, okay? You
sure.
have a trustworthy person to dispense things to the team. This is not a free-for-all. You're not at the grocery store. This is like giving out medicine that's behind the prescription counter at your drugstore. Treat it like gold, number one. Where you can, dissect your treatments, body treatments especially, in back bar to pre-portioning. You have to know what it's going to take. You have beautiful cups like solo cups with lids that can be pre-portioned by tablespoon, teaspoon, ounces, and so on and so forth. Use that where you can for truth. Tracking and accountability there is mandatory. We know that, we've said it. But the Sharpie Principle is when you have your delivery from your service partner, you are going to use your Sharpie and date. This is not retail because that's not going to work in retail. Mm-hmm. But if you're getting gallons or boxes or bottles or whatever it is, you're dating the day you took it and put it in inventory. For me, let's just say I get 4 cases of Biotone gallons of shea butter. I'm going to put 1 of 5, 2 of 5, 3 of 5, 4 of 5, 5 of 5. Right? I'm going to shelve it so that my 1 of 5 is in front of me. And when it's given or dispensed, I'm putting prep room or base, because it's going to go in a prep room. Something that big is definitely not going in a treatment room. And I am not putting another one until I have an empty for full. For the sake of treatment rooms, it's a different story, especially in aesthetics, where you actually have to have 1 of each product in the treatment room, empty for full. So that's pretty important. But I also add in the Sharpie room 5, room 8, room 10, so that I know that if I'm finding it in room 1, somebody's hoarding product, they may be at the end of their product, or the therapist may have been moved to that room and it hasn't gone back because now the room was used for massage. You got to use the Sharpie. The Sharpie keeps people honest, and it keeps you completely globally aware of what you're doing and tracking. So,
and that empty for full, Betty, When someone is finished with a product and they need a new one, they hand it in. And what you do at that point, you can either have a manual record that you keep, and then that gets put into your computer system. So then you do an adjustment. So you decide when you do those adjustments. Is that done on a weekly basis? Is it done on a daily basis? Again, it depends on the size of your location and what makes the most sense.
So for us, because you're giving a full for an empty, once that's handed out, it is consumed. So for us, if I'm giving you an Arctic berry peel pump thing to your room, it is assumed you're pumping it and you're using it in this next treatment. And so it is already out of the inventory. And I have, and literally on inventory day or prior to inventory, we're looking in your cabinets, if not several times during the month. So I think just in summation of best practices, we're at 401, discard protocols and procedures that don't work. And just because you're comfortable with them doesn't mean that they actually work. So take a really good look at it and see if we've helped you to engage in new processes, help inspire your team to help you in engagement. We'll help you bring stuff to your bottom line. Your team's pretty essential sometimes in the feedback. They teach you so much you don't know. So don't discount that. Take the time to design the system that works for your business. Increase your bottom line with cost control measures. Period.
And the other piece of that is it's really important if you're an owner, spa owner, and you're not an esthetician, or you're a management figure, but you're not a technician, attend those trainings, because that just gives you the knowledge and the power to know what's appropriate and what's expected, because otherwise you're operating in the dark. You really need to know how your services are executed and the expectations with that. Julie, is there questions right now? Because I know we're short on time.
We have one last slide.
Oh, the last slide is, yay, last slide.
Yay.
So successful people do what unsuccessful people are not willing to do. Don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. So that's a little motivation to take with you as you might decide to tackle your costs for your business. And, you know, baby steps, do one thing at a time, but it does all contribute to the bigger picture and your bottom line.
And also, if you find the talent in your room, so to speak, you may have an esthetician that's an Excel wizard. You may have a front desk associate that just is too bored for their own good. So find the gifted talent in your room and use them.
That's a great point.
Julie, you want to give us questions?
Anybody have any questions? Let's just see.
Looks like there's 22 chats. Yike.
How many gloves and masks do you think we need per treatment?
Let me answer that for me, then Nina. I do believe that if you don't watch a treatment being performed, you won't have that answer. What treatment, I mean, in a body treatment, and we may be required to go back and wear gloves throughout an aesthetic process right now. Some states actually require it. Once we're touching bodies, we don't really know, but Irina, hi. It's really important to know that you're gloved up to do a mani or a pedi, that you're applying a mask. Then you need to know that, you know, after clipping and filing a nail, you're changing your gloves. You have to go through the process of the treatment. It should be an SOP for your treatments when actually to do that. So as you do the steps of your treatment, and especially going forward, I think you need to determine if this is a glove change moment.
Absolutely. If
cross-contamination being key.
Yes, I would say look at your cross-contamination options, you know, during your service. And if for any reason your hand leaves your client and touches anything else but the client, then it's a glove change moment.
Right.
That's great. Well, thank you, ladies. This has been some amazing information. I'm going to jot down, like I always do, my top 5 takeaways from this session so that, you know, people can use these. Everyone that signed up for the webinar will get a replay, as well as this great PowerPoint presentation and Betty and Nina's information. You can usually find them on the coffee chat on Thursdays. If you haven't joined us before, we welcome you to hop on to coffee chat on Thursdays. And don't forget, next Monday's Memorial Day, so we will not be doing our 3 o'clock webinar, but we will be doing a webinar at 3 o'clock on next Tuesday. And the topic is our next brick as we build the foundation for you is going to be compensation. So thank you.
We need 2 hours, Julie.
Yeah, I was going to say 1 hour is not enough.
We need 2 hours, that at least.
I don't know how we're going to do it.
We could do a day on compensation.
A day.
We were planning to do an in-person event in June about compensation, which we all know that hasn't panned out. But yes, we're going to talk about compensation and dive down another rabbit hole. We hope this was helpful to you. As always, you can find us, at JM Pankey on Instagram and Facebook. And I'll share Betty and Nina's information so you can reach out to them as well. Our knowledge and book is always open, and we're here to help you.
It was a pleasure to be with you today, so thank you from me.
Teresa, did you have a question? I see she raised her hand. I don't see a question, though. If you have a question, Teresa, go ahead and shoot us an email, and I'll make sure I get it to Betty and Nina. Thanks, Nina.
Thank you, everybody, for your time. We appreciate it. It means a lot. And best of luck with everyone with your reopenings.
Yes.
Thank you, Betty.
Bye now.
Okay. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay.
Is everybody else off?